Welcome back to another episode of the Freedom Train podcast series. I'm your host, Joseph Ward. And I do want to give a shout out to my co-host, Patrick Irvin. You know, he doesn't do the interviews. He's a little shy. It's funny, but he doesn't do the interviews, but he does help on the back end. So shout out to Patrick. Shout out to the rest of our Freedom Train Network crew, Shelby Davis, Candace, our queens, and shout out to the return of the Enigma Sep Hour. Emmanuel Nicholson, Enigma September, welcome back. And we're working on some other content that we're getting out on the network. So make sure y'all stay tuned. Hit up our website at www.freedomtrainradio.com. And remember, we're sponsored by PAX Inc. That's PACTSINC.org. And PAX Inc. is a Black advocacy and think tank organization that their design is to create free tools and resources to help the Black community uplift and empower themselves. So make sure you visit the website at www.pactsinc.org. That way you can access those free resources and that free information and be able to use it how you please to be able to help yourself and your situation in your community. And speaking of helping our community is the reason that we are here today. I'm excited about this interview. This brother, I just learned this, but this brother is a 7th generation Tallahassee. So I need to talk to you on some other things. We got some other business to do. That's amazing. But this gentleman is somebody who I'm going to say is an asset to the Tallahassee community. He's over the years, I've watched him spend his time, give his talent, give his resources to our community. He's responsible for helping to revitalize the art scene, the art culture in Tallahassee. We were just talking for a while. The expression of art was mainly, from what I saw, mainly through music. Artists were here, but we didn't know where the artists were. So through a gentleman like our guest, and I'm gonna say his name in a minute, but through a gentleman like our guest, art is on the forefront here in Tallahassee once again, and it's allowing African American people in Tallahassee to be exposed to not just other African American people, but other people of other ethnicities and races who are artists. And we know what exposure does. Exposure helps to expand the mind, and that's one of the things that this gentleman has helped do for a lot of our youth and a lot of the adults in this Tallahassee communities to expand their mind. He is running for the county commission, the Leon County Commission, and I believe this gentleman is pure of heart. I believe his intentions are great, and I believe he is somebody that we can count on, we can rely on, and I would say would be a pleasure, and it would be something that would be very, very special to have him in that seat. And this gentleman is Mr. Josh Johnson. Welcome to the Freedom Train, my brother.
Thank you, Joseph. Man, I appreciate you having me. All of that stuff that you just talked about is stuff that I have to humbly take because, it is an undertaking that the art specifically, and I know we're going to get to a lot of stuff, the politics and everything, but the art specifically has been an undertaking that is a great pleasure, right? Because we're helping build scenes and we're building dope vibes and its community and its expression and its education. And so these things are so cool in themselves that the fact that I get credit for helping build them almost seems like too much. But I guess every now and then I have to allow people to pat me on the back. So I appreciate you.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Now I get it though, because you do have to get used to stopping and smelling the roses and taking appreciation, because when your mindset is on change, and you're used to boots on the ground working, that's where it is. I do understand, but we're going to celebrate you. We're going to celebrate you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So before we get into the politics and into the art, give us some background information about yourself and what's your why? What inspires you to get up every morning and make your community better?
Great. So I'll take those questions in 2 parts. And I'll take the background about myself because while I'm a very public person, I'm always in the newspaper or somewhere on Facebook or whatever, I'm starting to learn that very few people know what I do. They just know the hair and, the gallery. But some background on me is I'm an educator. A lot of people don't know that. I'm a teacher. I teach high school and college level classes. I teach my high school classes through Godby High School, and I teach my college classes through TCC. And I'm also the president of 621 Gallery, a 41-year-old Tallahassee cultural juggernaut, right? It's just a
Hmm.
space that so much great talent has come out of, and so serving as the president for that gallery for these many years has allowed me a charmed life. And then I also run a marketing firm with two business partners, and we help small nonprofits and small businesses, and we also bring large scale projects to the city and to the county.
Okay.
Usually, I contract with COCA, the Council on Culture and Arts, and things like that. So, for example, right now I'm in the Bond neighborhood, and we're
Hmm.
bringing a series of murals and art gardens and banners to the Bond neighborhood, and it's just stuff like that. And so, even the most rigid parts of my work are very expressive, which allows
Yeah.
me to, keep my tank full. And then my why changes over the years because the
Hmm.
spaces that I find myself in give me new fuel to get out there and keep fighting and building community. And so now, most presently, my why is the kids that I teach, the young boys, right? Uh, Usually African American males, age 18, right? I've been able to, and that's not taking away from any of my other
Hmm.
students, but what I'm saying is, um, vulnerable populations
Yes.
um, usually need an extra seed planted.
Right.
And so planting those seeds has and building those relationships for me over the past 4 or 5 years has been my why because I see myself in them, right? The hair
Yes.
looks like my hair. The
Yes.
problems are my problems. Their concerns are my concerns. The way we look at law enforcement or the way that we look at people looking at us when we're shocked, they are me. And I've very rarely been in spaces where I can be a surrogate. Usually, I'm up front fighting, but in this space, it's literally me, and so it's just so cool.
That's man. That's great. That's great. I love that. But you are right. When you see those who do need a little extra help, being able to help them, that does increase them. That does add to them. That does give them value. And you give them resources and things that they can use for themselves. So that
Mhm.
is amazing. And so I didn't know that you. I knew you was a teacher. Didn't know you was a professor at TCC. So
An adjunct,
oh, but
yes,
still,
but yeah, adjunct, yes.
still,
Hmm.
yes, yes. No,
Political
that's
science,
amazing.
POS
Yeah.
1041.
Okay. Yeah. So you do a lot more than I knew. That's amazing. That's amazing. So you're running for Leon County Commission. So I do one thing I want to start because I always like to make sure people understand the position that you're running for. So could you, for those who may not know, what is the Leon County Commission and what do they do?
So the Leon County Commission is the body that governs the decision making processes that will govern the county, right? And that's everything from policy to mandate to laws to how we spend our budget, how we build our budget, how we plan our budget, the projects we receive, the projects we don't receive, and so it's actually a really huge undertaking. Usually when people look at local government, they're looking at the city commission, like the
Hmm.
mayor and things like that. And those jobs are, the ones that make the paper more often. But actually, the county commission represents more people. It represents the entire city and some of the outlying areas, um, parts of Woodville. And so it's a very huge undertaking that affects the lives of, almost 300,000 people.
Okay. So what made you decide to run for this position?
Great. Very good question. I've had to boil this thing down over the course of this campaign because there was a lot of stuff that made
Yeah,
me run.
I know.
But the way that I've boiled it down is the fact that, I'm an economics teacher. That's one of the subjects that I teach.
Hmm.
And the way that we're spending our money is, to me, absurd, right?
Hmm.
When we're crawling out of a pandemic, or when we have the poorest zip code in the state of Florida, or
Yes.
when we're one of the most segregated cities in America, or when our school district is a great school district, but it also falters in certain ways, right? When we
Hmm.
have small businesses are going out of business. Every time you look up,
Yes.
another
Yes.
Tallahassee iconic institutions going out of business.
Yep.
And the best things that we can find to spend our money on are $27 million giveaways and $80 million land use giveaways. I mean, this is absurd. When we have this excess money, if you're not investing it in the communities and the
Yeah.
community at large that needs it the most, I don't know how much further we can go down, man.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's something that has been, I could say, a pain in the butt for me for a while. Just seeing how funds are being spent, and I'm literally seeing my community get worse.
Yeah.
I'm se- I'm seeing developments around my community, but my actual community getting worse. Okay, so you as the county commission, what do you plan on changing as the county commissioner?
Absolutely. We have to make public investments a more equitable thing. And when I'm talking about investments, I'm talking about everything from money to infrastructure and everything else. Because if these things aren't made equitable, a lot of people have pinned for some reason or another, maybe it's for political gain, that I am anti-growth. That couldn't be further from the truth. I
Right.
know that Tallahassee is going to grow. I know that growth can be beneficial, but I'm also not stuck in some echo chamber that tells me that we have to grow in the way that's deleterious to us. We can all grow. And if we can't
Yes.
all grow, then we really should mitigate the factors that we're giving this money out for. Because, a lot of people, one of the most boring things that I have to talk about that has become really cool is the
Hmm.
urban services area. And when I used to talk about the urban services area, people used to say, man, Josh, don't nobody want to hear this, until they found out what it is. The urban
Right.
services area is the city boundaries, right? Where all of
Okay.
our sewer, electric, and all the utilities that we benefit from are in, the things that make a city, right? And I'm not running for city commission, but I'm taking this somewhere.
Right.
We are expanding the urban services area for these projects and spending all of this money on it, right? And what we're doing when we expand the urban services area is we're leaving other communities out. And so when you send $80 million to the northeast side of town that didn't quite need that investment for land use deals, for stuff that hasn't even been built yet, you're stretching the use of the city that much further north. And what's already happening to a south side is making a south side more vulnerable, or a west
Yes.
side of town is already making the west side more vulnerable, right?
Yes.
And so we're just compounding blasphemies by spending this money and expanding the urban services area for these projects that we don't need.
Yes. Even like you saying, 32304 is the poorest area code in the state of Florida. When I
Absolutely.
learned that, it blew my mind. But you know what's crazy? I'm 32310, a street over from 32304. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can literally walk to Pensacola Street. Take me 5 minutes to walk to
Mm-hmm.
Pensacola Street. So I see college students, I see the poor communities that have been there, and
Mm-hmm.
then they put the shelter there. And so we have a growing homeless population as well.
Absolutely.
And so I'm seeing all these things that are happening on the west side, but you know what? I never really thought about the combination of the west side and the south side and how bad it's getting for both, like as a both together.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that 32304 is the poorest area code. So how did that happen? Like how did 32304 become the poorest area code, and how can something like that be fixed?
So the first question to how did it happen? I hate to sound sensational when I say stuff like this, but it really is just neglect. I mean, there's no other way around it. There's no
Okay.
other way around it. When somebody who's 34 years old, that's myself, I'm 34 years old. And as I told you when we were starting, I'm 7 generations from Leon County.
Hmm.
When I would drive through the South Side as a kid, it looks identical
Yes.
today to
Yes.
how it used to
Yes.
look, you know,
Yes.
25, 30 years ago.
Yes.
My old man says the same thing, right? My grandma said the same thing. And so, if all of the elements that believe in growth so much to pump all of this money into these projects, if you believe in growth for growth's sake, it seems like common sense that you would want to lift the communities that need it the most. when you look at
Mm-hmm.
the South Side, when you look at Frenchtown, when you look at Highway 20, when you look at areas of middle of the East going just a little north,
Yep.
these are neglected
Yep.
areas, right? And
Yep.
we are not making our growth equitable, and it's becoming top heavy. And we all know what happens when something gets top heavy, it topples over, right? How you can um, fix that neglect is just by using a little bit of common sense. Saying that, listen, if we're going to do something here, let's try to plan to also do something here so that we're
Mm-hmm.
getting an equal lift of tide. And then people say, well, Josh, aren't you concerned about gentrification? I absolutely would be concerned
Right.
about gentrification in some of these areas. However, gentrification only happens when people can't afford to stay
Right.
in the place that they're at. And that's when you start investing in small businesses and looking at people's livable wages and how you hike those things up. There's things that we have to do in tandem to make sure that this stuff works, but we're just nailing one nail for 30 years. And then you're mad when the board splits. That's what
Right.
happens when you just nail one nail.
Right. So with all that being said, all this is happening.
Mhm.
How can trust in our politicians be restored? How does that happen?
Um, my answer to that question is time is out to restore trust in some of them. It's time to vote them out and build trust with new ones, right?
Yeah.
Uh, person I'm running against had 12 years to build this trust. I'm no longer interested in restoring the trust. I want to get somebody in there that I can
Yes.
start building some new trust with because the stuff is, I mean, it's at a fever pitch. No
Right.
incumbent is going unchallenged this year. That in
That's
itself is an
good.
indictment that people are tired of trying to restore trust with the old guard. It's time to build some trust with the new guard.
Yeah. No, I'm look, I am 100% with you. And I am very selective about who I allow on my platform because I think about it and I understand the brand that I'm trying to create, but I understand overall what I want to do with this platform. And
Mhm.
so I have you on this platform because I didn't have to build trust in you as a politician because I was able to build trust in you as a man.
I appreciate you, man.
But that's the thing that I want people to understand about someone like not someone like you, about yourself. I want people to understand that about you. This is a man of the community, of the Tallahassee community, a Tallahassean who's running for a political position to help change the city that he eats, sleeps, lives, plays in, and works in. Right? We're on the same mission. We're just taking two different vehicles to be able to get to where we need to go. And like I said, I want to be able to support you because I see what you do. Um, I see the impact of what you've done. There's one thing that I've learned is you don't even really realize the people that you're impacting sometimes.
Mm.
And that is another thing. You have impacted me. You have impacted other people because that trust that you talk about. It's not a lot of politicians around here that we trust, but you are one, and it's just a testament to the work that you've put in. So
I
I do want to
appreciate
give
you.
you kudos for that.
Thank you, man. And I've tried to, it's easy when you're doing it, not expecting to run for this seat. When you live in a space where you're just doing that work and then these opportunities arise, I think that that's the best place to build. But a lot of
Right.
people see these seats as stepping stones and they end up stepping on people. I don't see this as a stepping stone, right? I see this as another way to express the work that I've already been doing.
Great job. Great, great. So I do have this question,
Mhm.
and it's about accountability because I know, especially in our community, where certain sectors of our community, um, we often talk about holding politicians accountable. So, as someone who has lived not being a politician, who's running for a political position, from in your purview, your vantage point, your ideas, how can politicians be held accountable?
Um, so one thing we have to do is pay attention, right? Um, Paying attention is something that I think is often slept on. Let me give you an example of this, and this is something that I have lectured about. If you look
Okay.
at the south side of town, and I'm not a resident of the south side, but a fact is a fact. When you
Right.
look at the south side of town, You've got a sewage treatment facility on the south side. You've got an
Yep.
airport. You've got
Yep.
2 or 3 train tracks. Do you
Yep.
think that that type of thing would have happened anywhere else? No, because politicians know that allocating those types of things to one side of town is a terrible thing to do. But they think that the people on the south side aren't paying attention. Now, while I think that's changing, I think a lot of that has been true, not because
Yes.
people aren't paying attention, but because people have real world problems. And to be worried about the urban services area got to take a back seat because I need to pay my rent this month. I need to pay my mortgage this month. I need to see who's going to take care of the kids tonight, right? I need to do those things. And so, what you've been able to do is make vulnerable communities isolated from the process because they're spending all of their time worrying about the problems that these politicians are creating, and they don't have any time to worry about the new problems that
Right.
these politicians are creating,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so, $80 million going out to a Walani land use deal on the northeast side of town, didn't even really make a stir because they did it during COVID when nobody was paying attention. We were all dealing with these problems. But that was $80
Hmm.
million. Do you know what $80 million investiture could have done somewhere that really needed it?
Right. Right.
It's those types of things. So in order to hold people accountable, we have to start paying attention, right? We have to start not living in tradition so much. We have to start
Yes.
breaking up this tradition and saying,
Yes.
it's time for some either action or some movement. And if you ain't going to act, you need to move.
Right. That's where I am in life, just period. Action over talk. I'm just tired of talk from within our community and outside of our community. I just believe we have a lot of people who, especially that look like us, that don't have our best interests, who are mingling with the people who don't look like us, who already don't have our best interests. But a lot of those people are being put in positions that make decisions like where the money goes, where
Mhm.
the resources go. And we need more people in positions that look like us, that don't look like us, but who have the best intentions for the community that they're serving or they claim to serve. And but like you say, being able to pay attention, but being able to understand what's going on. That's one thing that I've noticed within our communities, because you're exactly right. If I'm if I am taking care of my mother, we low income and I'm struggling, she's struggling, but I'm doing my best to take care of her. She has health issues. I have health issues. Some of these other things that are literally going on that affects my everyday life, I'm not going to be able to get to it.
Hmm.
So those vulnerable populations are being taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
That's horrible. But that's why I'm glad somebody like you will be on the web. Call them out, do what you need to do.
Speak truth to power, man. That's the
Yeah,
tradition I come from.
because if you look at like the last 4 years, we've had a lot of shaking up, a lot of things shaking up in the political realm, and I'm not going to say names on here, but
Hmm.
there are politicians who I do give my hat off to for speaking up, standing up, speaking out, speaking truth to power, and rattling things and calling out people who are not doing their jobs, because that's what we need. We need something different in here. Yes,
Absolutely.
sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. To be honest with you, and I hope this doesn't sound like I'm indicting anybody, but I think too often people see politics as a job. And once the job becomes your check, we all know from our jobs that you'll do anything to keep your check
Yep.
almost, right?
Yep.
Even if it means, and you got to stop looking at politics as a job. If you can't do what you're supposed to do up there without the fear of losing in 4 years or 2 years, then you ought to never run for these seats. But people get comfortable, it becomes their income, and people are trying to fight to keep their jobs instead of fighting for the people who gave them the job.
Right. Right. I agree. I definitely agree. Mindset matters.
Yeah.
Mindset matters. Your care matters. Your will matters. Question that just
Mhm.
popped in my head. Um, because you have you understand economics. You teach economics.
Mhm.
Economics is a very important part of the platform that you're running. So I keep hearing a lot of economists and other people who are talking about a coming food and water shortage just
Mhm.
for the world. And I'm just thinking about Tallahassee. Have you heard any of the officials, the politicians, anything, anybody in those realms talking about the coming food and water shortage and how the Tallahassee community could best get prepared for it, the best combat it?
So I think that some of that stuff has been sensationalized.
Okay.
But the parts of it that are true are the fact that we're creating food deserts. I mean, we've been creating food deserts for
Yeah.
the 15 years. And so
Right.
even if the food or water shortage isn't a true thing, it's already true for some people, right?
Right.
Poor people all over this country are already seeing food shortages because it's quarter tank of gas to the nearest supermarket. The food's too expensive what you get in there because of inflation, right? People are almost forced to eat very unhealthy foods that
Mm-hmm.
have other systemic issues. And so, no, well, I shouldn't have said no. I have heard some people addressing these food deserts and these inflation crises, but what I haven't seen enough of what I want to see is people putting stuff in place that's going to mitigate or curb these things. Just like,
Okay.
you know what you reminded me of? Affordable housing.
Yes.
Now that affordable housing is a problem nationwide, every politician you hear talk, I want to do something about affordable housing. We've been
Yes.
talking about an affordable housing crisis for the past 5 years. It wasn't until it hit the doorsteps of people that matter to those politicians that they start saying anything about it. Now that it's a
Yes.
crisis across the board,
Yes.
right? And it's the
Yes.
same thing with food deserts and food crises and resource crises. We know it's coming, right? Economists know it's coming. People in the barbershop know it's coming. Everybody knows it's coming. But politicians don't start talking about it until they think they can get a vote from it, when actually they've had 12 or 15 or however many years to do something about it
Yes.
and didn't do
Yes.
anything about it. So don't talk
Yes.
about it now.
It's been an issue I'm 38. It's been an issue my entire adult life. It's been
Hmm.
an issue. So
What,
let's
affordable
not
housing?
yeah, well, that just the food deserts, because I'm
Yes.
from the South Side. I grew up on the South Side. So I lived on Putnam Avenue back
Yeah.
in, let's say, the early 90s, when the Winn-Dixie was in that shopping center on the South Side.
Mm-hmm.
When Dixie was on the I guess you could say the east side of the lot, and then they had the Harveys on the west side.
Yes. Yeah.
So growing up, we had two grocery stores in that area, and then magically both of them are gone. The area is getting worse. So they bring Piggly Wiggly, and I'm glad the Piggly Wiggly is there. But you still have these different food deserts. You still
Mm-hmm.
have that. Affordable housing has been an issue my whole life. I remember my family, we went through some issues when we dealt with homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
And if my mother wasn't disabled, trying to find affordable housing would have been a bit more difficult. And that's crazy to say
I
that
hear
my
you.
mom had to be disabled to find affordable housing,
Yeah.
so that's always been an issue. But I was scrolling through Instagram, and I saw Tally Newsroom posted 300 unit for affordable housing units supposed to be coming to Tallahassee. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering if that is truly going to be affordable housing.
So I can't speak to that specific project because I'm not quite sure what you're referencing, but I will speak to
Okay.
this. If people think that $200,000 to $270,000 homes are affordable housing, that just
Right.
shows you the disconnect, right?
Right.
That's not affordable housing. Now, it may meet the average median income of the area, but all that means is that that's a wealthy area. That doesn't mean that the houses are affordable, right? I just don't understand. And so a lot of the projects that we've seen come in under the guise of affordable housing have turned out to just be commerce boulevards or developer
Yeah.
enclaves where they then hike the prices up. But they said that it was going to be affordable just to get ease
Right.
in the development. But we don't know how it's going to turn out, or they'll make it
That's
student
good.
housing or something. Who knows?
That's good. So I want to ask this, and then I want to pivot into some of the other things that you bring to the table, because I want the people to know you as a whole human being.
Mm-hmm.
So why should people vote for Josh Johnson?
Mm-hmm. So I could tell you that the school teacher art gallery guy is the most endorsed person in this race, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has led fundraising for several months. I could tell you all of those things. And those things might be things that validate a vote for me. I don't think they are. The thing that validates a vote for Josh Johnson is record and presence, right? Where
Yep.
have you been? What
Yep.
have you been doing? And what are you doing now? Not what are you
Right.
saying you're going to do. And so the things that I have done um, are very public. I think I have crafted a very good reputation for
Mm-hmm.
myself. But outside of
Mm-hmm.
that, the stuff that I'm doing now is stuff that we just need done. We need certain communities lifted. And so when it comes to the art sphere, or the education sphere, when it comes to the business sphere, I have always focused my life's work on helping the most vulnerable. Sometimes the most vulnerable look like me. Sometimes the most vulnerable don't look like me. Sometimes, it's a poor white kid, right? Or a poor
Mm-hmm.
Hispanic kid. It doesn't matter to me. I believe that vulnerable populations should be taken care of. And that's not because I'm trying to give the bag away. It works for everybody. When you take care of the most vulnerable, the middle can be more comfortable and the top can be more imaginative, or however you want to look at it. But when you
Yeah.
let the bottom sink, it ends up weighing everybody down. And then we find ourselves in positions countrywide where you see stuff like 1% of the population owns more than the other 99% combined. That's ludicrous. That
Yeah.
is ludicrous.
Yeah.
But not that ludicrous, because Leon County, I think God's gift to earth, is still one of the most segregated cities in America,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Just take a trip down Blairstone Road. Blairstone Road changes in front of your eyes.
Oh yeah.
North Monroe, there's parts of North Monroe that look underdeveloped and untouched. And there's parts
Yep.
of North Monroe that look like downtown Denver or Austin, Texas, right? Swank bars and stuff like that. It's a problem, and it's not a problem that we may not face. We just need to get in front of it before we start
Yeah.
facing it even more.
Yes, sir. Yes. 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 And I've always said, I always tell people, we're literally separated by railroad tracks. Like,
Yeah.
because there's the old adage, but we are literally
Yep.
separated. And I tell people, for those who've never been to Tallahassee, there's a literal railroad track that separates FAMU and FSU. That
Yep.
FSU is the north side, FAMU is the south side.
Yep.
FAMU is the HBCU, FSU is the PWI. We know where the resources are going. And so, but that's why another reason why I want to have you on here, so more people can hear you, see the passion, and understand where you're coming from with this political race. It's not just facade. You're not just trying to be popular, not just trying to do anything. Because a lot of people think these positions pay a lot of money. These positions really don't pay a lot of money. But
Actually,
it's
I think they pay, and I'm going to say this, and I hope I don't get
good.
myself in trouble with colleagues in the future, but the county commission pays $80,000 a year, right?
Wow.
Uh, which is not a bad gig to have and have another gig. And so if you're going to have that much onus on a position, you got to expect that much more from it.
Yeah, I
I
get you.
really do.
I
I really
agree.
believe
I
that.
agree. I agree. I agree. But the overall though is you're giving your time and your effort. You're stepping up to a plate to where people are expecting you to do a specific thing. But also I charge the voters though, not just because I want people to know everything about you as a man, as a politician, that they need to know. But I charge the voters to do their research and do your homework. I charge the voters to understand much about Tallahassee and the politics in Tallahassee and everything that's going on, because I often run into a lot of people who they're going to vote based off of what I tell them and who I tell them to vote for.
Mhm.
And that's not how we should be doing this. We should know as much as possible. Now, with the understanding that everybody's situation is going to be different, but we do have those who have a lot more time, a lot more resources, a lot more knowledge, who can help others. And platforms like this will be something that helps. But I do charge the voters to do as best job as they can to research the people who are running for the positions and know exactly the talking points, know that what their heart is as much as you can, and just be as well researched as possible so we can make sure we're putting the right people in the right positions.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
because
Couldn't
that
agree more.
because that will make it's a so I always look at things like a team and the team concept. what's a politician without the voters, and what are the voters without the politician? If we're gonna use this political system,
Mm-hmm.
so we need you and you need us. We put you in this position, but I often people when they vote, they say, "Well, I just voted the person in." So you didn't vote that person in with a specific goal in mind or idea or why you want this person or what you want this person to do. And so that's the thing I charge the voters: don't just vote just to vote. Vote with a specific goal in mind.
You know what? I'm going to take it one step further, because another one of the subjects that I teach are civics, social studies, government,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Good.
When people call my phone, people that I don't know, mail-in ballots just went out, and so people are starting to call, because
Mm-hmm.
my number's public. People that I've never spoken to before saying,
Yes.
"Hey, is this Josh Johnson? And I want to know why I should vote for you." One of the things that I noticed that the majority of people have said on the phone or in person or whatever is, "Don't let me take up too much of your time. I know you're busy." And I tell them, not because I'm a good guy, but because I have a frame of reference. I'm talking to my boss, right?
Yes.
As a
Yes.
political person, when a voter calls me, that's my supervisor. And I don't know anybody crazy enough to tell their supervisor that they don't have time to talk about work. And so voters have to understand that politicians aren't the powerful people. The voters are the powerful people. We work
Mm-hmm.
for the people.
Mm-hmm.
Too often it's gone the other way, and a lot of these things have become self-serving, and it
Yeah.
feels good to go to these parties and be recognized and shake hands. No, celebrity, you're a servant of the people, and if you're not willing to put on your butler's coat every now and then you need to step out of this game, because this is a
Okay.
servant's game.
You dropped the mic on that one. I love it. I love it. I love it because that sums up everything perfectly. That sums it up perfectly.
Yes, sir.
So I do want to pivot into you as an educator. So
Mhm.
how long have you been an educator in Leon County, and when did you get your start?
Absolutely. So I've been teaching for 4 years, and this is how I got my start. My political career started as a criminal justice reform guy, right? I
Mm-hmm.
was really interested in how we looked at the restoration of civil rights and how we looked at restorative justice and clemency and stuff like that. And so I was managing a campaign for the school
Mm-hmm.
board. Marcus Nicholas, he won this year,
Yes.
as a matter of
Yes.
fact. And Marcus would always plant a seed in my ear, and he would say, "Man, you should really think about teaching, even if it was part time." Say, "Marcus, I don't have time to teach, man. Look at the work I'm out here doing." He says, "Yeah, but certain kids never get to see guys like you, right? They see
Yes.
you in the newspaper and they see you on Facebook and their parents are clapping for you. But how much more powerful could you be? Or how much could you close the opportunity gap if those kids got to see you every day?" And I said, "Man, I'm not doing it." And over the course of the year of managing this campaign, he talked me into it. And entering the school system was probably one of the best things that I've ever done. Every day, every day, you got to smell Mr. Johnson's cologne. You got to see me in my face, and you have to deal with me and reckon with me and play with me or whatever. But I am there, and I am a present authority that can give unavailable love, because we locked in that box together all day.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I see the kids more than I see a lot of people in my personal life. They become
Right.
my family, which is why
Right.
graduations are a lot like funerals for teachers. It's a very sad thing, but they become family. And so I think that the representative nature of it has been healthy for me. But my start was actually from managing a school board campaign.
Okay. Now that's amazing. Now that's amazing. And you teach at Godby High School, correct?
Godby High School.
So what has that experience been like being an educator, especially in the high school?
Mm-hmm. I couldn't, and I'm good with my words, but I couldn't sum it up. I
Okay.
could not sum it up to you. The the friendships, the mentorships, and the relationships that I have been able to build, that I have been blessed or fortunate enough to build over the past 4 years, are or will be some of the most important of my
Hmm.
lifetime, even if I live to be 600 years old, right? It has been a place where I am free. I have never had a job where where what was expected of me was to show up, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Showing up is what makes me a rock star at Godby. Them seeing me. Every other job, showing up is That's just punching the clock. That's just nothing. That's what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do. But my showing up is a thing that can change a kid's life.
Yes.
And I hear it time and time again. And so it's just a space that I can't explain to you, man. But if I could, I would say that it is the purest and the most beautiful thing I've ever done.
No, and that's amazing. That is amazing. But Marcus was right. Representation does matter.
Yes.
I was fortunate enough to basically every school I've gone to has been predominantly black.
Mm-hmm.
But in that process, you still have more women as teachers than men.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't, let's say men teaching me didn't have a significant impact on me until high school.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Reverend Brown. I remember Mr. Allen from Rickards. I remember Mr. Johnson. I remember Mr. Farquhar, who was our science teacher. So, those four men, and then I played football. So those men, those black men that I was able to be around, who showed us love, who showed us the tough love, who gave us the easy love, the emotional love. It was a full range of emotions that we was able to experience. But then going to FAMU and seeing black intellectuals at the highest level. And the first time I heard a black person articulate themselves, but their tonation wasn't more of a European person of a white person, but they're very articulate, but their tonation is like mine. I was so excited. So and that's something that made me want to improve the way I communicated with people, improve just the way I carried myself, improve the way I was just as an overall man. I was like, what you mean I can do this? So I wish I would have had someone as a teacher like you, especially like middle school, just being able to understand that being an intellectual was a pretty dang on cool thing to be.
To be. I heard
Yeah,
that. I
yeah.
want to hit on a point that most politicians would stray from, but I can't be the man that I say I am. And you brought it up if I didn't hit on it. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want any qualms made about it. I am fighting for a job, and I've done this in my life, that represents 300,000 people. And these people look different. And each
Mm-hmm.
one of those people will have the same access to me and the same passion from me. But if it is lost, I want people to understand that it is not lost on me for a second. That as a black man, right, there is an obligation that I have. Now, that doesn't mean that anybody is prioritized heavier, but I know what seeing a Commissioner Johnson looking like this does for a young African American guy, because
Oh
I
yeah.
have been that before, right? When Barack Obama won the presidency in 2008, I had never met the man, didn't know the man, right? Had no connection to him, but that may have been one of the most powerful things that ever happened to me, just because it validated me in a space. And so,
Mm-hmm.
actually, before I got ready to run this race, a student of mine asked me. His name's Nemo, and we called him Nemo because you can never find him. But Nemo said, Nemo asked me. He said, "All right, Johnson, you getting ready to run for office, huh? You gonna cut your hair, or you gonna stay looking like us?" And when he asked me that question, and I was going over it in my head, I didn't think I was going to cut my hair because I like that
Mm-hmm.
little gray streak. But I
Right.
guess you think about tightening up or
Yeah.
something. When Nemo asked me that question, he removed the choice from me. I didn't have the choice anymore because he was looking. And now I got an obligation to his eyes just as much as I got an obligation to anybody else's eyes.
Yes.
He was looking. And
Yes.
when you look,
Yes.
when I know you're
Yeah.
looking, I got to do it.
But that's the great thing. But that's also a compliment to you,
Mm,
because you've been a black student, young black man in Tallahassee student. We're not looking at everybody.
mm.
Just because you're in my school and just because you're a teacher doesn't mean I'm looking at you. I
Yeah.
see you, but I ain't looking at you. I look at people who I have a connection with. I look at people who care.
Yes.
And that young man was validating that not only do I care about you, but I care about the quality of campaign that you ran, because
Mm.
we're trying to see if you're gonna still remain one of us, or you're gonna be like everybody else who gets the position and forget about us.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I
But
heard
but
that.
it but it, so it's like a two-pronged message that was sent. Like, we care about you, but we want to make sure that our situation can get better.
we got expectations for you, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
got expectations for us, but we got some for you too, bro.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Not,
Absolutely.
and that's great. So, how can education be
Mhm.
improved? How can we better make a ma- how can we do a better job of making sure that the children, especially children who go through the Leon County school system,
Mhm.
no matter the side of town they are,
Mhm.
they can get the best education that they can get? How can that be made happen?
So I will say this starting off. I do believe that the students of the Leon County school system get the best education. Now, could it be better? Still better than everywhere else, but
Hmm.
it could be better. And you said it in your opening statement. You actually took a line that I've been saying for years now, that the greatest education is exposure, right? Exposing people to stuff is a juggernaut when it comes to education. And I do think that in some facets of education, we could expose kids to more. I think that sometimes there's too big a responsibility given to college, right? We need to start talking about the trades more, right? Welders and barbers and estheticians and hairdressers and all the like. We can start talking about trades more. We have to start making investments in the communities that the kids go back to. Because when they're with us for the 6 or 7 hours a day, they're good. But some of them go back to conditions that I just cannot explain
Hmm.
in the greatest city and
Yeah.
county on planet Earth. And we've got some hard situations. I tell people all the time, teaching at a Title I school, a lot of my students go through more from the time they wake up and make it to school than some of the teachers will go through all
Yeah.
week. And we're grown,
Yes. Yes.
right? There's problems out there. Some of it's financial, some of it's social, whatever it is. There's things that we can do to make sure that our students are going home to something as good as what they're coming to school for. That's the responsibility of education, to have our kids complete. And they can't be complete when we're not investing in their communities.
Yes.
They can't be complete when their parents can't make a livable wage. They can't be complete when the investments that they see going everywhere else, they never once see come to them.
Yes. I 100% agree. And two things happened in my lifetime that I've always wanted to see, but I didn't think it would happen this soon.
Mm.
I saw Rickards and NIMS improve,
Yeah.
and the reputation, especially NIMS. Shout out to everybody, Dr. Benny Bolden, everybody over at NIMS, because I always thought that if we could see NIMS improve, that could start a domino effect. Like NIMS and Bond. You see those type of schools improve, you can start to see a domino effect. But also what that means is we can. This is what happens when people who care actually do something about it.
Yep.
And if it can happen for those schools, it can happen across the board, and it can happen within our communities. And it's just a microcosm of the bigger situation that can be if we just make sure we put the right people in place. But us as the community people, the voters, everyone, we do our part as well. And that's why I want to keep reiterating that it's not just on you as the politician, it's not just on you as the educator, but it's on us to support you and you support our efforts because we're a team.
Mm-hmm. Out of all the it's cool that you said that. Out of and I've got a lot of endorsements, man, but I just got one this weekend from the Southside Frenchtown Political Action Committee, right? And when you look at what organizations have been doing, um, it means that it could have always been possible. There was just some walls there, right? But when people 15 years ago, and so you said you're 38 and from here, so probably 20 years ago, probably 30 years ago, people were saying that Frenchtown can be an area that exists, and not only exist, it can thrive,
Yep.
and it can keep its characteristics. It does not
Yep.
have to become an extension of Midtown from the back
Right.
or FSU from the front. It can
Right.
exist in the middle of those things and be just as cool as both of those things, because both of those things are cool. I love FSU, I love Midtown, and I love Frenchtown. And now that Midtown's encroaching on Frenchtown from the back, and you're starting to see all this gentrification. There are community members that are standing up and saying,
Yep.
no, this is a historic district. And if you
Yep.
really care about Frenchtown, you'll make investments in it. And we have been seeing some things move. Now, enough movement hasn't occurred, but we have seen things move, which means that
Mm-hmm.
it's possible. It's
Yep.
possible.
Yep. Yep. And that's the hill I'm standing on and I'm dying on. It's possible. And as long as it's possible, we can put in the work, we can do what we need to do to make it happen. Because that possibility dies when the people don't care anymore.
That's it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let's talk about art, man. Let's talk about some
Yeah.
art. So I'm gonna start here. It's been around 41 years. I just started hearing about it a couple years ago.
Mhm.
What is the 621 Gallery?
So 621 Railroad Square is our art district. It has been adopted as Tallahassee's art district. It's a
Mm-hmm.
vibrant place of colors, murals, shops, bars, everything, right? It's a cool place. 621 is what I believe the anchor of Railroad Square. It has been there all of these years, and it has been a venue space, a contemporary art gallery, a community hub, a think tank, a lot. It's just a vibe, is right. It's 4,000 square feet of vibe. And now, what we do as a business model is we show contemporary art from all over the world, actually. As a matter of fact, we have 2 international artists exhibiting in this upcoming
Wow.
exhibition season, but artists from all over the country. Now, this is nothing against 621. 621 is one of the great loves of my life, but you hit on something that you've been here your whole life. It's been here your whole life, and you just started hearing about it recently. While 621 has always been a dope space, it has for a long time been an exclusive space, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
exclusive in the way that you look at most things like a class exclusivity. It was really exclusive in the fact that it was so art heavy that some other things fell by the wayside. And so during the tenure of my presidency at 621, I have started art and activism, right? Where we're talking about community issues. I have started not I should say we, because it's a board of us. We have started making it more accessible to venue spaces. So we have hip hop shows in 621. We have house shows in 621. But moreover than that, we have been highlighting, and more importantly, we have been highlighting local artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before, you had to be a professor somewhere in New York and you could get you a show at 621, because everybody wants to show there all over the world. It's a 4,000 square foot white wall, high ceiling gallery. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
But we're starting to highlight local artists, and not just local artists, local artists of color and black
Yeah.
artists, right? We
Yeah.
started a television show that got on network
Okay.
television called
Okay.
Art in the Margins, right? Where I
Wow.
highlight black artists from all over the country. Most of them were local too, but all over the state and country. And so we believe the same things we've always believed, but now we're putting ourselves in a position to manifest them out into the world.
Right. Right. Why is art important, and why is it important to make sure that more artists are created and the creations of the artists are promoted and supported?
Oh, so I'll just answer this personally, because this has to be a personal question. But growing up, um, the music my dad listened to on Saturday morning when he was making us clean up the house is stuff that I might not always listen to now, but if it comes on the radio, man, a tear might roll down my eye, because it's just important. And the
Mm-hmm.
men and the women that were important to my father, the traditions of activism and community engagement, those people, right, were usually highlighted through art. And so you've got art as a vehicle itself, but usually pop culture and activism and all of the huge moments of a day are captured in some art form, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
music, right? Some people look at Bob Dylan or James Brown, right? But look at what visual artists like Basquiat and Warhol were able to do in capturing their moments. And so art is a vehicle that can take uh, progress places that progress itself couldn't take it. And
Yeah.
so it's a fast car too, man. You get in that art vehicle, you can drive to places you could never go, because everybody loves some form of art on a
Yeah.
visceral and cosmic on a deep level. And so art's important, man.
Yeah,
It's everything, really. I just don't want to sound pretentious, but it's everything.
it is. Art is the expressions of a culture. It's how
Yes.
people express themselves. It's how people um show the everyday life. Is how people show what's going through their minds, what's going through their hearts. It's a form of communication. Um, I love that art is being revitalized in this area, but I hate the overall, I guess, idea and some of the actions that have been taken, especially taking removing art from schools.
Mhm.
And sometimes when people they try to denigrate or look down or limits specific artistic expressions while ignoring the other forms of art who may do the same thing.
Mhm.
And some of that, sometimes that could be the face on it or the place where that person comes from. But I just believe that art is something that you can't box in. Art is not something that you can tell somebody, hey, don't do this.
Mhm.
But then if I look over here, because like, and I give examples, um even though I know the impact of some of these songs. I see people when they look at hip hop, they tell hip hop what they can't do, but they go to Hollywood and praise everything that they just told hip hop they can't do. They go to Hollywood and praise, and I never thought that that was right. I do think artistic expressions need to be pure. They need to be free. But if you want to change the message or change the tone or the frequency that's in the art, you got to change what's going on in the communities with the people because
Mhm.
they express what they experience.
I'll I'm gonna tell you something I don't know if I've ever said publicly, and I've done a lot of interviews, and I'm not ashamed of it. As a matter of fact,
Hmm.
it may well be one of the coolest parts of my life. But um, through the art and business world, I have had the rare opportunity, very rare opportunity, to manage pieces of the catalog of Leon Hicks, the artist Uncle Junior, who may well be the foremost African American printmaker to ever live. And he's
Hmm.
90 years old now. And the reason he's in Tallahassee is because he retired from FAMU, because after teaching at all the Ivy League schools, FAMU was the first school that gave him an opportunity to teach in the 60s. And so he wanted to retire here. And so we have a cultural icon living right here in this city, right?
Wow.
Got more write-ups in press than anything, an art catalog in the millions. And I get to manage a few pieces, about 75 pieces of his catalog. And one thing that Dr. Hicks told me is uh, I used to be mad when people called me a black artist
Hmm.
because it watered me down.
Hmm.
However, we have to put ourselves in spaces that validate the space itself. And I know that sounds like a bunch of language, but all I'm saying is if art is art, we cannot be concerned what people say about hip
Yep.
hop, right?
Yep.
Um, Now I have critiques for hip hop because I'm a hip hop head, and so there's things
Hmm.
that I don't like about hip hop. But
Hmm.
anybody who denigrates an art form can no longer be valid. I don't care how powerful they are, because the truth of the matter is, uh, African and Middle Eastern arts and Asian arts are the very first arts on this planet. African art
Yep.
specifically,
Yep.
and so these are the traditions that started art. And so to water down black art is not even a crime. It's just not even something that I hear anymore. And I used to hear it a lot, and I still hear
Yeah.
people saying it. I just
Yeah.
don't listen to them
Right.
anymore.
Right.
And so, yeah,
No,
I believe in
that's a great
all
answer.
art, but yeah, we're not going to water down black art at all. As a matter of fact, man, art is the way somebody walks. You ever
Yes.
seen some of these pictures of these photographers taking brothers in Harlem in the 60s, and just the way they're wearing their clothes and holding the item in their hand and walking is art. Now, the
Yes.
photographer had to take a picture of it to show it to us, but that brother was walking regardless, and he was still art. Art is
Yeah.
everywhere. It's the way
Yeah.
person dresses, the way you choose to exist, right? It is. It's art. And so I believe in it, and I don't take certain critiques of it seriously
Right.
because they have no place in art.
Where do you see the 621 gallery in the future? How is this artistic scene in Tallahassee growing?
Whew, that's a good question. And it's a question that's going to get me in trouble, but I don't care because I like a little trouble. Um, while art is everything, and it's also something that has informed and dictated movements, art can also be used as something to separate communities,
Yes,
right?
yes, it can.
The
Yes, it
very
can.
first thing we see happen before gentrification comes is a mural go up somewhere, right?
Yes,
You see that
yes,
mural, then you see that
yes.
Starbucks, and you know it's about to be happening,
And
right?
you see somebody
And
jogging.
and so art uh, has a responsibility to communities because a lot of people use art to do things. And so what I'm saying is the future of the Tallahassee art scene can go a few different ways. I know what I
Mm-hmm.
want to see from it. I want to
Mm-hmm.
see it preserved. I want to see it help grow. I want to see it situated, and I want to see it get the credit it deserves. I never want it to be used as a tool to further divide communities, people, classes, races, sexual orientations, whatever. And art can do that. And it's a responsibility of the facilitators of art to make sure that that doesn't happen. Right. And
Right,
so 621 has that responsibility, but so does every other art hub, collective, gallery, or space in this county. And if we
right.
do it right, we're untouched. We have so much art talent here that it
Yeah.
is insane.
Yes.
Insane.
So where can people in Tallahassee, where can they go to see art exhibits or just see displays of art that we may not? And I'm asking that for myself and others.
Mhm.
Um, I I've gone to it's an art gallery down the street from Olene's. I can't
Yeah.
remember the name of it. I've been there before, but and I understand that things happen in the Railroad Square, but
Mhm.
for somebody like me who would like to go see more exhibits and immerse myself further into the art scene, where can I go or where can others go to see what's going on to immerse ourselves?
Absolutely. So obviously, Railroad Square is a hub for some of that type of stuff. There's several. There's us up front, and then there's several smaller galleries sprinkled throughout Railroad Square. And then you got the Anderson Brickler Art Gallery, the gallery that
Yes,
you were talking about,
yes,
who is owned by Dr. Brickler. And it is just an amazing
it is.
gallery that usually highlights African American art. As a matter of fact,
Yes,
Dr. Hicks, Leon Hicks, is one of the principal artists that's shown in the Anderson Brickler Gallery. We also have university galleries. We have the Foster Tanner Art Gallery on FAMU's campus, and its ED is Azure Roach, who is
yes,
a legacy art
yes.
from a
Fantastic person.
legacy art family. She's a
Yes.
fantastic person. Her father's Joe Roche, who is a local art legend, and so that gallery is just doing amazing things. And then you have FSU's art gallery. FSU has two art galleries, and then
Okay.
you have Vinvi, right? Well, with Brenda, and what she does is phenomenal, and it's on Park Avenue, and it's a privately owned art gallery. And there's just so many things to do, and usually, not usually, but sometimes we work together, and there's
Hmm.
shows at uh, cool little houses and brunch shows. And so it's just a bustling art scene. And once you get it, and then there's Lemoyne, right? Um, People sometimes try to pit us against Lemoyne. There is no, well, obviously there's some competition baked in the cake, but
Right.
Lemoyne is a local treasure as well. We're just in the same business. And Lemoyne, right, downtown is an incredible art gallery. And so we have spaces, and then the student population, right? The pop up shows that FSU and FAMU students are doing through the art schools is amazing. And then you have art hubs like the Plant right there on Gain Street, right next to the
Hmm.
Wilberry, that's doing really cool collective stuff in the art world. And so we just have a lot of stuff to tap into. And then there's collectives like Cat Family Records that does everything from manage music artists to do production. And it's just a cool, cool place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I you named a good number of places that we can go experience art, and I'm ashamed to say this, but I'm gonna say it. Been here my whole life, and I've only heard about two or three of those places.
Yep. Well,
So
some of that is because, like we said, exposure is the greatest education, and
yeah,
some of these things aren't always marketed to 24-year-old African American males, right?
right, right.
And sometimes, to be fair, I mean, I've been a 24-year-old African American man. Sometimes we wasn't checking for that stuff, but if we knew it existed, it would have consumed some of the stuff. I would have loved to take some dates to some art galleries, but I just
Yeah.
didn't even know that they
Yes.
were there like I saw on the movies. And so some of it was people weren't checking for me, and some of it was I wasn't checking for them.
Yeah.
And so once we expose and start working together, it gets so much better. As a matter of fact, I had friends, never internally in the gallery, personal friends of mine, that when I first started my tenure at 621 said, Josh, why are you going to an all white space to exist and do things in there? Why don't you start your own thing? And I said, well, first of all, starting your own thing is a huge undertaking. And
Hmm.
second of all, why not show up in every space and make these spaces more cooperative, right? And now 621, from the inflection of art and activism and programming that we do there and being a venue space, has just not only financially benefited, but the community has grown so much. We had a collective come to us and say, we want to do a Juneteenth event. Now, it didn't work out because of some internal stuff on their end. They
Hmm.
couldn't get it ready, but we were ready to have that. And Juneteenth, right, is a holiday now, a federal holiday.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to be celebrated and exploited like any other American holiday. That's how we do holidays. And to see that 621, right, who 10 years ago was an exclusive white space, not a bad space, still a beautiful space, but just exclusive to a certain demographic, was going to represent and have a Juneteenth event where it was programming and music and history and lectures and poets and all types of stuff. So it's just, you have to change spaces from within. And that's what well, you don't have to, but you can. And that's what I chose to do with 621 in a lot of ways.
Now, hats off to you, kudos to you, all other accolades and superlatives that I can throw out, because through politics, education, and art, you have undertaken a task in helping Tallahassee improve, and we can see the improvements, we can see the changes. Um, so you all the praise that you get is well deserved.
I appreciate
Because, like, once again, you don't have to do it, but you're doing it. And but a great thing about you is you understand, from a foundation point of why this is important for Tallahassee, why what you do is important for Tallahassee, because there's a there's a young man, young boy, and some young boys and young girls in Tallahassee, and I'm not even talking about color at this point. I'm just saying
it.
there are young boys and young girls in Tallahassee who will be influenced by somebody like you, who will see what you're doing, or even if it's not a direct influence, it could be an indirect influence or something that you had your hands on, but that's going to impact somebody's life in a positive manner, help their life get better.
Hmm.
And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, because from politics to education to art, these are three things that exist. They've always existed in human societies, and three things that have been instrumental in shaping human societies. And so you have your hand in all three, and
Hmm.
the overall goal is just to see Tallahassee get better. And
Yes,
I mean, we can't ask for more. We can't ask for somebody who's more genuine and down to earth and a real Tallahassean
man.
taking the reins, getting in this position to make sure Tallahassee is better. That's great. That is great. So my hat goes off to you, my brother.
I appreciate you, Joe. And I just
I know.
appreciate you. Like I told you, when I said giving me a chance to run my mouth is always an honor and a privilege. I meant it,
Yeah.
especially when it's about stuff that
Yes.
is going back into the places that I think are the most dear. And Leon County is
Right.
the best place on planet Earth.
So since you like talking and I like talking, I actually I want to talk to you a bit about this when we get through this, but I have another venture that I'm doing on my historical side that I would like to see you I'd
I,
like to collaborate with you with. So
I would take it
definitely.
as an insult if you didn't come to me, man. So please, let's link up.
Well,
Absolutely.
yes, 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 yes. So somebody sees this interview, they love what you're talking about, or they don't like what you're talking about. Anyway, how
Mhm.
can people get in contact with you?
Oh, I do this because I'm real and I'm not afraid of it. First thing I'm gonna do is put my phone number out there. Anybody ever wants to call me about anything, the only thing Josh can do is express his truth with a yes or a no. So my phone number is 850-459-7212. You can find me on social media at Josh_politics_art. You can find me on Facebook at my personal page, Josh Johnson, or my political page, Josh Johnson, for Leon County Commission at Large Group 2, or my website, which is www.voteforjosh.org. You can always come into the gallery. Now, I'm not always in the gallery because, as the president, um, I am fortunate to, like you said, be seen as the face of the gallery and
Mm-hmm.
the big head honcho. But day-to-day operations are run by an incredible person, an incredible local art personality, April Cluse. And so she's the ED and runs
Okay.
day-to-day operations. And so she's usually there every day. But at any time you stop by 621 and say, hey, I want to talk to Josh, if you leave something there, I'll get it within a day or two. And so I'm very accessible in any of
Yes,
those
sir.
ways.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. The audience appreciates you. Tallahassee appreciates you. And the future of Tallahassee would definitely be brighter because of the work that you've put in. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Josh Johnson.